This isn't going to be a video about the Seahawks, but I wanted to talk about it because it's something that's I'm really passionate about and something that's really annoyed me. And that is the news that Todd McShay is going to be leaving ESPN. I started writing Seahawks Draft Blog in 2008, and that's really when Todd McShay came to prominence in the draft world. He was working, I think he started a company called Scouts Inc. He was suddenly starting to appear in conversations with Mel Kiper on ESPN, and they had amazing chemistry. They started off, they were almost like the original Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless, just a draft version. They would constantly argue with each other, but it was great entertainment. I remember ahead of the 2010 draft, their arguments about Jimmy Clausen were legendary things. It's where the Todd thing all started. And as somebody who was very interested in the draft and started writing about the draft, and as we saw the draft take off, they were so important to this. And, people would say silly things about Mel Kiper and Todd McShay, and, the people who were a bit pretentious about it would always see them as sort of a bit too much entertainment rather than hard analysis. But I thought they were fantastic, and people need to give them a bit more respect, because over the years, Kiper and McShay have been ahead of the curve on players, and their First Draft podcast has been excellent. I can't tell you the number of long drives that I've done in my day job where the First Draft podcast has got me there, and the journey has flown by. And they are the draft. They are as much the draft as anything else. So to see the news that ESPN were letting Todd McShay go really bothered me. It's just not going to be the same anymore. To not have Mel Kiper and Todd McShay debating each other, to not have that First Draft podcast, the draft has completely changed. And I guess the broader point that I'm making is, how the heck do we stop Disney from ruining everything? Disney just bought up a load of things a few years ago that people really care about and really love. That includes LucasFilm, that includes Marvel, and that included ESPN. Now, I'm not a Star Wars guy. I'm sure a lot of you are. It's never been anything that I've been that interested in. As far as I'm aware, Disney has completely destroyed Star Wars, to the point where they're not bringing any films out anymore. They're bringing out these crappy Disney Plus things, but they're not bringing any films out anymore because they'll just lose money and they'll get hammered, because the people running Lucasfilm don't know what they're doing. There's a new Indiana Jones film out, although I will insist till my dying day that there are only 3 Indiana Jones films, that the final one was The Last Crusade. But they've brought another one out now because they need to try and make some money, and they think just chucking an Indiana Jones film out there will make them loads of money. And they're going to be wrong, because you can't just put any old stuff out and slap Indiana Jones on it and people are going to go and see it. Everybody knows that they basically shoehorned this ridiculous Phoebe Waller-Bridge character into this film, and no one cares about this. No one wants to see an old Indiana Jones being told that he's old and useless by Phoebe Waller-Bridge. So that's going to lose a load of money, and they're going to tarnish the legacy of Indiana Jones to go with Star Wars. Marvel, as far as I can tell, again, it's not something that I've ever been that interested in. Superhero films are not something that I'm bothered about. But as far as I can tell, based on the people I know that do like those kind of things, it's gone down the toilet since the last Avengers film. And now we've got ESPN, and they're deciding they're going to make all these savings. What it's kind of really all about, it seems, is they want to funnel their money into different areas. It's well publicized that Pat McAfee is going to take on a show there, and this is the way that the world is going now, and it's not incorrect that I think the traditional TV broadcasts are less important these days. A lot of TV shows on things like ESPN and the NFL Network, what they'll do is they'll set up the show to get the sort of the short clip, whether that's like a minute for Twitter or something, or whether that's like 10 minutes for YouTube. And most people nowadays will absorb that content on social media. They won't necessarily be watching the TV to watch ESPN. So, times have changed, and podcasts are huge, and Pat McAfee is basically the biggest name in that sort of sphere, podcasting, YouTube channels. So bringing him into ESPN is a completely understandable way of doing things, and that could certainly make some success. What I suspect might happen, though, is all of the edge that came with Pat McAfee, and It never really floated my boat, his show. I know a lot of people do like that. But if you lose the edge from that show, the kind of rough around the edges, everyman quality that came with Pat McAfee's show, if you get rid of the swearing and stuff like that, for example, and then what are you getting? Is it just going to be a sterilized version? Is it just going to, are ESPN going to do to the Pat McAfee show what they've done to Star Wars and Indiana Jones and Marvel, essentially? And are they weakening their product by taking away really quality established broadcasters? So it's not Todd McShay, there's about 20 people leaving, some of them I think are going to be less impactful, but if you are going to remove someone like Susie Colbert from your presenting and then put other people who are less qualified to do her job in that role, the general quality goes down. So while you do need to channel investment into sort of these modern day practices like podcasting and stuff like that, you also do need sort of core quality broadcasters. Your clips that you want to put on YouTube, for example, or Twitter, are going to be weaker if you don't have a good anchor who can control the guests and get in and out of those exchanges. And those are the kind of things that someone like Susie Colbert can do. As much as they might sort of push back against this, I genuinely think that they're making a huge mistake with Todd McShay, because Todd McShay and Mel Kiper together is I would say is a click machine, is a view machine for YouTube and for Twitter and for social media. When you put them together, if anything, they should be prioritizing those two, doing more with them, and putting them all over the place from January onwards in order to max out the draft, because the draft's, as far as I can tell, is a huge winner in terms of clicks, views, and attention as soon as the NFL season finishes, which for most of the teams is after week 17 or week 18 of the season. So I don't really understand this decision. And I think we're all going to be worse for it, because Todd McShay, I mean, look, when you think back to last year, Todd McShay got absolutely flamed on social media for saying that, per his sources, Jalen Carter was going to be a hot button topic because of his character, that a lot of teams didn't want him in their locker room. He got hammered for that. People criticised him. No one was really talking about that until then. He was the first one to say it. That was an unbelievable bit of reporting. It was completely spot on, and he was ahead of the curve, and he gave everybody insight that no other draft analyst had given up to that point. We're going to lose that now. We're not going to have those bits of information unless Todd McShay goes and works somewhere else. And fingers crossed that he will do. But I want to see Todd McShay across from Mel Kiper talking about this draft, giving those nuggets, revealing his mock draft with Mel Kiper and producing that kind of information. We're going to lose that now. There's a bit of talk that like Matt Miller's going to step up into Todd McShay's place. With the greatest respect to Matt Miller, he's not a patch on Todd McShay. He isn't. When I think of Matt Miller, no disrespect to the guy, good luck to him. If he's going to be essentially the next Todd McShay, all power to him, good luck to him. But when I think of Matt Miller, I think of the guy who called Seattle 2012 draft the worst draft in the NFL, and that Russell Wilson in the third round was one of the worst picks in that entire draft class. I think back to the guy who spent a whole draft season insisting that Jared Holloman was a first round pick when he was picked number 239 in 2015, and last season spent his tenure with the Bismarck Bucks, whoever they are. So, whenever he produces sourced information, which was quite a lot in the last draft season, not a lot of it came true. And yet Todd McShay had the single greatest piece of inside information, the Jalen Carter report, of any draft analyst out there, and was way ahead of the curve. So I think ESPN's coverage is going to severely suffer from this. I just think it's really disappointing. I don't think you can get rid of the quality that you have on air, just pump everything into Pat McAfee and expect that things are going to be A-okay. I suspect that what we're going to see now is ESPN's, not just their draft coverage, but probably their NFL coverage as well, is going to go the same way as LucasFilm and Marvel and everything else that Disney seems to get its mitts on at the moment. So I think it's a huge shame. I really hope that Todd McShay ends up, the ideal thing for me is to find a way, because it's really disappointing for me, because we've already lost Mike Mayock from the NFL Network, and I don't think there's any way of shifting him back in now without, because they'd have to bump off Daniel Jeremiah to do that, and that seems like something they're not willing to do, although, my word, the draft coverage on NFL Network suffers for not having Mike Mayock. And now we're going to lose Todd McShay as well. I just think it's really disappointing. Really upsetting, really disappointing for someone who's as obsessed about the draft as I am. And yeah, like I said, what else is Disney going to ruin next? Please stop ruining stuff. Anyway, what do you think about this news? And if in the comment section you just want to absolutely hammer Kathleen Kennedy and everybody else at Lucasfilm for destroying Indiana Jones and Star Wars and Disney for destroying Marvel, then be my guest, because they deserve to hear it from everywhere. SeahawksDraftBlog.com for more analysis. Blog's a bit quiet at the moment, but as we get in, we're into July now. So as we get towards training camp, things will ramp up again. Got a few things planned coming up. And then, of course, when we get into the heat of pre-season and college football starting again, and then the regular season, all hands on deck. The blog will be alive. And I know a lot of people jump on from the draft season onwards, but you know, I still think it's the best place to be during the college football season, because that's when we talk about players. I'm going to get some live games this year. So I hope you can join us on that journey. SeahawksDraftBlog.com. Please subscribe to the channel, like the video, it really helps. Leave a comment, it really helps for the algorithm as well. Until next time, bye for now.